1 year of European External Action Service. What have been the main achievements in the past year?
The main achievement has been to get the EAS up and running. It's been a challenge of monumental proportions, I would say, for the High Representative and for the institutions with whom we're trying to work out a working relationship. So it's involved everything from setting up new IT systems to negotiating agreements on how we work together, for instance, with the Commission or with the Council and so forth. So it's involved an immensely complex, broad range of issues. Now, in the area that we work in specifically, it's brought quite a strong added value in that we have a single dedicated directorate dedicated to human rights and democracy support.
Gender equality has been identified as a key priority for the European Union. What approach are you taking to fight for gender equality in your cooperation with partners?
The EU has had a strong emphasis on gender equality for many, many years. The overarching framework on how we work on this right now in external affairs is the comprehensive approach, which was adopted in 2008 and governs the need to mainstream the ideas and recommendations of UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the follow-up resolutions in our day-to-day policies in any number of areas in which the EU is active across the board in external relations. So it was really quite a blockbuster step for us to take. Now, of course, the devil is in the details, and one must implement what one agrees to at a high level, and so we've been working on implementing since then. Let me just emphasize again what I said earlier, and that is that the rights of women and gender equality, more specifically, is a very strong interest of the High Representative.
How will the EU tackle issues that limit human rights achievements, such as cultural and traditional practices that inhibit the eradication of forced and early marriage?
There are lots of cultural, I would say also religious, traditional practices that can be very healthy, but I have to say unequivocally that any cultural, religious, traditional practice that inhibits the human rights of individuals is something that the EU is strictly and strongly opposed to and will work against. This is a set of issues that can be very sensitive in the broader political relationship that the EU has with certain countries, and so we have to tread carefully, I think. But there can be no mistake that violating the human rights, including the rights of those humans who happen to be women and children, and especially girl children, is unacceptable. This is a line that we take in our multilateral approach to this question, also in our bilateral when we talk to countries directly about this.
You're the head of this unit at the European External Action Service. Recently, the European Commission adopted a joint human rights strategy. What do you think will be the impact of this new strategy?
Well, first let me say that the strategy is a communication. It's a joint communication between the High Representative Vice President and the Commission. And it's the first time in 10 years, really, that the EU has said, well, this is what we think about human rights, this is what we should do, these are some of our priorities, this is how we should do it, and so forth. The High Representative felt, and as did a number of the member states, that we've looked at a number of changes in the last 10 years. Global political changes, 9/11, all that came of that, changes in the human rights context, the international human rights context, changes within the EU, and all of this needed to be taken into account. I'm hoping that the impact of this strategy, once it has also the endorsement and the ideas from the Council, from the Member States, from the European Parliament, from stakeholders like Plan International, that we can move forward with a solid understanding that we're on the same page, and we're working on certain issues. So I am anticipating and hoping for a kind of jump start, if you will, to our whole human rights policy, and a way of making it more comprehensive.
What are the main points and targets in the recent communication?
The new look at human rights, the communication, the new paper that has come out, looks at four different areas in essence, on how to improve delivery mechanisms, on how we actually move forward the human rights policy, on how to better integrate our policies, meaning how do we join up what we're doing in trade, or what we're doing in development assistance, or what we're doing in environmental questions. How do we join that up better with the substance of the human rights policy itself, with all its different parts, on the rights of women, on the rights of children, against the death penalty, against torture, and all the various issues that we work on. So how to join that up better? That's the second part. The third part has to do with building partnerships and how we actually work with others, including other countries, other stakeholders like civil society organizations, with how we work with the European Parliament, how we work with strategic partners, how we work with all of these together to advance the human rights, to better the human rights situation in general. And the fourth area has to do with speaking with one voice. It includes also 3 specific substantive campaigns that the High Representative Catherine Ashton is interested in specifically, and those are on the reform of justice and judicial reform, including the right to a fair trial. The second one is on the rights of women, and the third on the rights of children. And these are 3 issues that are very close to her heart, and on which we're going to be seeing a lot of action in the next 3 years.
What can civil society organizations like PLAN contribute to the activities and actions of the European External Action Service to increase impact in improving gender equality and human rights in developing countries?
The EU has a long-standing policy of working closely with civil society organizations for any number of reasons, among them also efficiency reasons, because you help us and are able to provide expertise, sustainability in the field that we cannot, that we're not able to do because of rotation, or because of the fact that often in the field, especially, civil society organizations are more trusted. I think the most important thing is to better our cooperation in the field. It's in the capitals, by way of the EU delegations and our member state embassies, that we can actually do something on the ground together. Our embassies have and delegations all have been instructed to appoint a human rights focal point. Most of them have it already. This should be the focal point for our work with Plan International and partner organizations in the field on real projects that can actually improve the lives of individuals.
We talked very much about statistics earlier. What kind of support do you need from civil society organizations in this area?
Somebody who worked at UN Women told me some time ago that if it's counted, then it counts. And this is why statistics are so important. Statistics on violence against women is something that we've been asking every country with whom we have a human rights dialogue since 2008. And it's hard to get that kind of statistics. But what we're specifically interested in right now also is statistics on various campaigns that we're in the process of, or we're exploring and reflecting on, including on forced and early marriage. It's tough to get good disaggregated statistics, disaggregated by region in this area, and we are. This is one example of the way that civil society organizations can help us. We don't have the expertise. You do. You're in the field, and we couldn't do it without you. That's, I think, very clear.
The year 2012 has just begun. What achievements would you be most happy about at the end of this year?
I would be happy to get launch a number of campaigns associated with the implementation of the Violence Against Women guideline. I would love to have a situation in which we have we've been able to institutionally strengthen our capacity to work on gender. Can't say more than that at this point. I would be happy if we would have a higher profile and quicker response to our various statements and declarations on individual cases. I have a long wish list, but I think some of it is actually attainable. So why don't we talk again in a year?